Good morning, traders. Happy or good morning, outliers. I've totally got my intros messed up here. Happy March 20th. There we go. Jeez Louise, Chris, get it together here. You're streaming live to the internet. How are y'all doing today? Hope you're having a fantastic morning. Welcome to today's Outlier Live, where we cover the biggest headlines of the day and what the AI trading data has to say about it. And if you're interested in that too, be sure to definitely hit the subscribe button down below that way you don't miss any of the most important news headlines of the day, what the AI trading data has to say about it. So first, top story of the day is Hertz, a rental car company. They are hurting like crazy because they have no idea how to market EVs for renters, right? They have no idea how to put EVs in the rental market. And because of that, they're hurting like crazy. Next story of the day is Americans are in so much freaking trouble on their auto loans. It's not even funny. And this should be a very, very concerning statistic to you in the shape of the economy, that those in charge, right, those politicians and powers don't want you to even think about this kind of information. So tune in for that and more on today's Outlier Live. All right, so our top story of the day is Hertz CEO resigns after EV push goes bust. So I want to play this quick video here from Fox Business. This right here is exactly why whenever I see the whole progressive, like, hey, let me track how you drive and we'll insure you, is why I'll never do that, right? Just imagine, right? Just imagine you need to pass somebody. So you're going from like 65 to 75 and then back to 65 or whatever the case is, right? Yeah, you were speeding for a moment while you passed that person. And now they're going to hold that against you, right? They're going to say you are a reckless driver because you were speeding. No, don't do that. Don't do that against me. Or they're going to look in that data to find if you were doing any possible thing that could have been construed as illegal, right? Maybe you're going 66 into 65, and they're going to say, bro, you were being illegal in this moment. We're not going to cover you in this accident you had. But either way, this video did not do the justice that I thought it was going to do. I thought they were going to be talking about the EVs. I swear I was just watching this video. Here we go. Yeah. Okay. This is what I wanted to show you. Well, I'll tell you one government subsidy that absolutely worked for me was the $7,500 tax credit. So I got a tax refund for the first time in years because I bought a Tesla last year, and I was like, okay, that's pretty sweet. I do too, but there are um, some idiosyncrasies about EVs that gas powered drivers don't know about. So, for example, I just drove my Tesla Model Y to Disney World last week, and it was a 2,400-mile round trip. First time I've ever taken a Tesla road trip, and I purposely took on this challenge because I wanted to see how it would be. And it was great. It was smooth. In fact, my family and I, we would have a competition basically, and they uh whenever you charge an EV, you don't have to plug in your car, right? You literally, or I'm sorry, not plug in. You don't have to tap your card on the thing. You don't have to scan your card at all. So you just pull into the spot and then plug it in. There's nothing in between those two things. So we would see just how quickly I could start charging the car. I got down to 6 seconds from the time I pushed the button to put it in park, got out of the car, plugged in the car, 6 seconds, right? And you're probably thinking, oh, geez, but you're still, going to be there for 2 hours or whatever charging. No, bro. The longest one I had was 25 minutes. And you're probably thinking 25 minutes, that's crazy. By the time you get out, stretch your legs, run and use the restroom, grab a drink, come back to the car, that's 17 minutes already. And then, so it's just another 8 on top of that. It's really, really not that bad. And most of the time, there were plenty of things to do, right? There were shops, there were gas stations, there were food places, whatever. There's things to do around all these chargers. So that made it really nice. So that was my first experience with my Tesla road trip. But preparing for this, there was a lot of preparing for this, right? I kind of obsessively planned out which route I was going to go. I live in Texas, and we're going to Disney World, like I said. So one route was going through Texas, through the top of Louisiana, through the middle of Mississippi, and down into Florida. And going that route, there was one charger in that like 45-degree angle southwest or southeast through Mississippi. And I was not going to take that route, because if there's just one charger on that route, just one, and for some reason that charger's down, then our whole trip is screwed, right? So I elected to go the other route, which was down through New Orleans and over, and that was fine. There were chargers everywhere. And one thing that I learned was that if you're driving at 70 miles an hour, right, you're using, an appropriate amount of battery of charge. If you drive at 80, use 20% more, right? You're going to get to your destination 6 minutes faster, but you've used up 20% more of the battery during that time. So if your battery is going to be, let's just use some round numbers here, 100 kilowatts. I literally don't know. That's beyond my skills. Let's say if it's 100 kilowatts to drive, a full tank of gas, full tank of electricity, it costs you 120, right? Now electricity is cheap, so it's not that big a deal. But it's the fact that now you've added that much more charging time and you've reduced your range by 20%. That's where EV renters don't get it, right? They don't get it. I had somebody tell me the other day, they were like, oh, this person took a road trip in an EV and they had to stop, 10 times, and they charged up so much that it would have cost them even less if they had drove a gas car. They were probably driving like 90, right? If you're driving the speed limit, your electric vehicle should compensate for that and tell you how far you can go, right? But if you're driving 80, that's 20% more battery usage that you didn't plan on. Driving 90, it's probably 40% more battery usage that you didn't plan on. And yeah, you're going to run out of battery a lot faster. So on my road trip, dude, I was sitting between 65 and 72 the whole way. Anytime they were like 18-wheelers, I just draft up behind them. And it was not that big a deal, right? I got to where I was going, had no issues. And honestly, it was a good time. My family would stop. We'd throw the Frisbee around every time we'd take a little break. And so for me personally, the Tesla road trip was great. However, for the uneducated, right, for those who are just renting one just to see how it goes, I can imagine that it'd be a pain in the backside, right? Because you're expecting this to be the coolest thing. And then the next thing you know, you're having to charge up way more than you thought. You're having to charge up way longer, way more often. And you're like, man, I just wanted to drive this car the way I would drive any other car. So yeah, I can imagine that this was a big problem here for Hertz. Its investment in EVs as part of the president's agenda made an aggressive push to broadly electrify the transportation sector as part of his climate agenda. Hertz announced that its biggest quarterly loss since 2020. I don't know what that's doing. After his decision to pivot away from EVs. Now, granted, if they were doing things like these Chevy Bolts, freaking don't even get me started. If you have any other EV that's not a Tesla, don't even bother. Don't even bother. Any other EV that is not a Tesla should not be bought. Period. Full stop. Teslas are the best. Like the whole system has been built out for like close to 20 years at this point. And then the charging infrastructure, which is what I used, 0 issues. I plugged in and it went. There was no problem whatsoever. Not once. Well, no, let me take that back. Once there was one stall I plugged into that was charging slow. And so I moved over to the next stall and it was just fine. That was it. And that was just a fluke, right? I don't know how many times I charged, but never, not once did I have an issue. The killer Centra says, any idiot that's renting a Camry for $300 a day deserves to be fired. It's not a Ferrari. Yeah, exactly. So let's take a look at what the AI trading data has to say about Expedia, right? If you're going to be renting a car, maybe you're going out to Expedia to find, right, your next rental car. So we actually got a buy signal on January 29th. So that was the last buy signal here. And following these signal returns, we would have seen a 49.79% return following these outlier signals. So that's pretty sweet, right? So if you are interested in looking at Expedia as a company, buy signal just happened a few weeks ago. Maybe now's the time to get into it. And let's take a look at what the internet is saying about this, right? Hertz CEO resigns after a big bet on EVs goes bust, right? If they were all Teslas, they'd have done better. I don't know if they were all Teslas, but if they were, that'd have been okay. Who the hell wants to charge a car? Nobody. Dude, I charge a car every night. It's awesome. You don't even know. Bro, listen. My wife actually drives the Tesla more than I do. I drive her old Lexus. It's not old. Her Lexus SUV. I call it old because it's like a dinosaur. That's how we describe it in our house. We have the electric car and we have a dinosaur. And so her Lexus SUV, like I feel like I'm always at the gas station. It sucks, right? Every time like I turn around, I'm driving it to the gas station, spending $58, $68 to fill up with premium, right? Heck, can't be regular gas, has to be premium. And yeah, it's so much easier to pull in, stick the plugger, stick the charger straight in the car every night. That's so much easier. You do not understand, Gersey Sal. You legit don't know. It is so much easier. At least they made Elon richer, so there's that. Yeah, freaking sweet. Go Elon. I'm sure the severance package is lucrative and he'll have EVs to drive as a reminder of how he'll never, I don't even know. Not surprised EVs don't sell. Dude, what are you talking about? The Model Y was the greatest selling car in the world and it wasn't even close. Tesla is its own jam. That's what I feel about, right? A lot of people, like the people who are hating on EVs, they've never owned one. They never experienced one. But if they have and they're still hating on it, it's because they didn't have a Tesla. You get a Tesla, you'll understand this is the future. All right, next story of the day is a blank screen. What the heck? Hang on, let's let that refresh. Next story of the day is a completely blank screen. Way to go. I love when it's live. All right, there we go. Americans are increasingly upside down on auto loans as used car values fall. Okay, listen. The real headache here, the real problem, many people who bought cars post-COVID 2020 to 2022 and a half, maybe 2023, that were paying over market value, that they were paying dealer markups for cars, right? That was a really, really poor financial choice. Now, a lot of people may have been stuck. They may have said, my car died, I have to get a new one. That happened to me. My car basically exploded in my garage one day, and I'm like, I need a new car. I'm going to go get Tesla. But that was after prices already come down on Tesla, so it's pretty sweet. But there were a lot of people who bought these cars at inflated values. And now they are so upside down. It's not even funny, right? Those cars that they bought the last 3 years or so, last 4 years or so, they probably took out 72, 84-month loans. That's not uncommon now because car prices have gone up so high. And then on top of that, there were shortages. So the dealers were marking them up. And then they probably had their own markup. They're like greedy bastards at the car dealership. They're like, let me screw this guy over just as much as I can. And now all these people are on the other end of it. And they're like, holy crap, I have a 4-year-old car with an 84-month car note. So I've only paid off half half the note. And then on top of that, like I'm upside down by $40,000 on this car or something crazy. Like it's a real problem. But anybody could have seen this coming. Anybody with financial sense could have seen this coming. Used car prices are starting to edge down after soaring for years after the pandemic hit. While the trend is a much welcome relief for buyers, it's also causing trouble for them consumers who purchase vehicles at higher prices. Yeah. So used car prices stayed elevated. It's not like they went up, right? It's not like you had a $10,000 car that went up to $50,000, right? They stayed elevated. They didn't depreciate as fast as they were because the car market was so hampered by what was it called? Not COVID restrictions, but it was supply chain issues, right? The supply chain issues. So people were going out in the auto market because they get a car now versus waiting 6 months or whatever for a new car. A growing number of Americans are upside down their auto loans as used prices decline, and the average amount of consumers are underwater is at an all-time high. Like you go out in the marketplace and like delinquencies are out of control, repossessions are out of control, people being underwater is out of control. There is no good part of this economy right now. I'm so bearish on this economy, it's embarrassing. But the administration would like to tell you everything is totally great. The administration would like to let you know that Bidenomics is working. Whew, I tell you what, when the history books are writing this, they're going to say Bidenomics was so much of a failure. And the biggest failure of all was tagging that name to it, saying, oh, yeah, we think things are going so awesome. We're going to lie to your face and tell you that it's so awesome. But yeah, on the same side, everything has gone to shit. And we've decided to tag our name to it. No, thank you. Let's see. The percentage of new vehicle sales with a trade-in with negative equity jumped to 20%. That's from 17% in 2022 and 14% in 2021. That's huge. What percentage changes that? So that's from 14% to 20%. So you do new minus old divided by old. Oh, shit. I typed over it that fast. Hang on. 20.4 minus 14.9 divided by 14.9. 36% increase. 37% increase, really. A 37% increase in trade-ins with negative equity. That's a problem. The average amount consumers owe upside down is a record high of $6,000, up from $5,300, and then up from $4,000. So not only is the percentage of cars upside down, but the dollar amount has gone up. So the percentage has gone up 37%. How much has the dollar amount gone up? So 6064 minus 4143 divided by 413. Really? Whoa, 46%. So the percentage of cars going hang on, let me say this correctly. The percentage of new vehicle sales with negative equity, the percent of new vehicle sales that had a trade-in with negative equity rose from 14.9% to 20%. So that's 36% higher. The average amount that they were upside down went from $4,000 to $6,000, which is a 46% increase. These are huge numbers. Those percentage increases are giant. If you're not worried about the auto industry, you should be right now. I think that this is going to be a huge collapse, right? A storm is brewing in the used market as incentives and inventory continue to trickle back into the new vehicle market. With demand for new vehicles on the decline, used car values are depreciating similarly to the way they did before the pandemic. And negative equity is rearing its ugly head. Well, yeah, of course it should do. Depreciating. Of course it would. Consumers most vulnerable to falling underwater are those who have purchased new vehicles for above sticker price, because those newer trade-ins seeing the steepest decreases in value. Wow, it's exactly what I said. Who would have thought? The data shows that compared to the third quarter, when used vehicle values were at their peak, the ATP, what does ATP mean? Average transaction price? Yeah, I guess so. For 1-year-old vehicles was down $6,700. 2-year-old trade-ins fell to $3,200. The ATP for a decade-old trade-in fell to $12,000, a $1,300 decrease. During the last few years, consumers could jump into new car loans, and their trade-ins were shielded from negative equity because some dealers, desperate for used inventory, were willing to pay near original purchase prices. That's interesting. These days, consumers need to be more careful, especially if they're trading in newer vehicles, because near new cars are being hit hardest by depreciation. Hang on. These days, consumers need to be more careful. No, always. When you're making big financial decisions like this, you need to be careful. And if you decided to buy a car and pay shitloads over sticker price because of dealer markup, that was a poor decision. I'm sorry to say, it really was. I mean, during that time, putting off that purchase may have been the better course of action than paying $10,000, $20,000, whatever, over sticker price. Because now today, you are on the other end of that with negative equity, looking straight in the face and saying, if I need a new car today, 3-4 years after I bought that car in the first place, I may be financially burdened with this for a lot longer and a lot more expensive than I ever thought it would be. So let's take a look at what the AI trading data has to say about Carvana. So my story is that I drove a Mini Cooper for 8 years, and one morning, all the fluids that were in my Mini Cooper were now on the floor of my garage. They had all exploded out of the car. And I was just like, whatever, I gotta get out of this car as fast as possible. So I took it and sold it to Carvana. Now, looking at Carvana, we actually got a sell signal back on March 8th. So maybe Carvana is actually starting to be hit by these used vehicle prices falling, right? Looking at the AI trading data here, you can see that it has definitely gone up, right? This buy signal right here, January 24th, is now got its sell signal here on March 7th. So really strong returns. In fact, let's look at the returns here. Outlier shows a positive 28.50% return versus buy on hold at negative 50% return. Now, if that doesn't tell you that Outlier is something special, I don't know what does. So be sure to head over to outlierdeal.com while you can. Last couple of weeks of this incredible, like 99% off sale that we have going on for a lifetime license of Outlier. Let's take a look at what the internet's saying about this, right? Bloomberg reports Americans are increasingly doubtful they will get approved for car loans or mortgage refinances, right? And of course, a lot of that probably has to do with how upside down they are. No wonder. I think it's time that the Federal Reserve and banks in general start to tighten financial conditions. Okay, let's keep going. Families, especially low-income ones, are swimming in so much debt that we're risking an economic crisis as soon as the unemployment rate moves upward to 5%. It's a ticking time bomb. Whew, yeah, and this chart here, outstanding credit card balances. We're at the highest credit card balances ever on record. I don't know what that has to do with anything. Definitely not has to do with the topic here. Maybe it's the Biden's government in effect. American household debt is becoming a mountain range of its own, right? This person says, who cares? You should care. Listen, you should care significantly because you are going to be impacted, right? One way or another, right? You may not have had a house to deal with during the great financial crisis in 2008, but that's where the housing, that's where everything started, was when the housing bubble started to burst and it trickled down to everybody. Doesn't matter where you were at that time in your life, you were impacted by the global financial crisis in 2008. That started with mortgages. So you should very much pay attention to when things are going a little bit sideways in the economy. You should also pay attention because YouTube's showing you 2 videos right here. Click one of them. It wants you to watch more. And thank you so much for tuning in today's Outlier Live. See you on the next episode.